Welcome to the Unfiltered Report. After dark, World Cup day one in the books. Well, well, what a day. Ryan, my good friend, my brother, how you doing this lovely evening, my friend?
Hey, you know what? I'm doing pretty good, man. I hope that it picked up what you just said for the last 30, 40 seconds.
We got Ryan, I gotta tell you, man, I love you. I'm gonna shoot with you straight. This is an unsustainable this is an
Yeah, no, it's
unsustainable
an
trajectory.
untenable solution. Yeah, we're looking at that for sure. But
We gotta
gotta
get
either
someone on
contact the
this.
Substack support team, or we gotta go back on to Zoom, no free ads or something, man. We'll talk about advertisements in a little bit as well, because that's a big theme. But
Oh yeah, yeah, big theme for
uh,
sure.
oh
Big
man,
theme.
but you know what? You said it best. Hopefully, it picked it up. Only God will know. At the end of this, we'll find out, obviously. But yeah, we day one in the books. We're gonna
Day
have
one in the books.
day one in the books. We'll see at the end of this recording where it picked up our conversation, which cracks me up every time I say that.
This is such a disaster, man.
No,
It's a
yeah,
beautiful
like you said,
disaster.
it's an untenable
I
long
think you know
swim
what? I
suit.
think at this very moment in time, I think Fox might be up, might have a leg up on us.
Yeah, you know
After
what?
all,
I think I'm sure if we were doing ratings, James Corden after hours is probably smoking us in the ratings right now.
you think he's got Chalamet, Stiller, and Spike Lee, and
Oh, dude,
Olivia Benson, and Detective Stabler,
you
whoever
know,
the heck. Oh,
man,
Taylor Swift. Who else was
it,
at that game?
Oh, you know what's crazy, man? Here we are, day one of the World Cup, and if you had that on our bingo card, you and I talking about the Nick Celebrity Row
Oh,
in the
jeez.
first 2.5 minutes of our recording, yeah, I definitely didn't have that. But you know what, man? I'm glad you bring that up because match day one in the books. We're
Actually, one of the books.
we made a promise before the World Cup that we were going to come in every night, and
As much as possible.
we were gonna yeah, well, I mean, listen, we're going for however many days the World Cup is. I don't have the exact number off the top of my head, but
I believe
you know,
39.
39. Well, our goal is to go 39 for 39. So, we're one day in the book, and we're 1 for 39 as of right now, knock on wood. Unless something tragic happens before this recording ends, we're 1 for 39. Um, and we made a promise that we were gonna come in after each match day, recap the day's matches, preview the next day. So we're men of our words. Here we are. You asked me, match day one of the books, how am I feeling?
Yes, sir.
I'm going to flip it back to you before I answer your own question because I want to set the stage for you with the match day one opener of the World Cup at the Estadio Azteca, Mexico, South Africa, the return leg of the opening match in South Africa 16 years ago in 2010. Which I misspoke, I think, actually, on a recording yesterday. I said I played that game on the DS. I do believe, in hindsight, it was on the PSP. Semantics,
I
but
think you said PSP.
I did? Oh,
I,
all right.
I'm I,
Okay. Well,
I'm pretty sure you did.
either way, here we are 16 years later. We got the return leg, Mexico,
Yes, sir.
South Africa in the World Cup opener. The floor is yours, my man.
Oh man, it's surreal. It's hard to believe that it's hard to believe the World Cup is here, man. When the World Cup was awarded to North America back in 2018, it felt like it was, at the time it felt like it was gonna be eons away, and it was gonna be a long, drawn out process before we ultimately get to 2026. And I guess it was, but the past few months, it just it's just flown by. It's hard to believe. I mean, it's hard to believe it's June first and foremost, and the fact that it's June 11th, and yeah, the opening match of the World Cup. Man, I don't know if it's because the Champions League final was only 10 days ago, or whether it's because the Stanley Cup finals are going on right now, and obviously the NBA finals are going on. A lot of hoopla around that, as we mentioned. And I don't know. It's hard to believe, but here we are. And I think, yeah, man. I don't know if, for as much as we and spend so much of our time in the months leading up to the World Cup anticipating the World Cup, talking about the World Cup, predicting matches, talking about the storylines. Like in some ways, like now that it's finally here, it's like it almost feels like we haven't. I don't know. It's like I don't know if you could ever be fully ready for it because when it comes, it's gonna be a sprint and a marathon at the same time. We had two matches today. We're gonna have two matches tomorrow, and then every day from that point on for the rest of the group stages, it's gonna be um, 4 matches, and I think in the match day three when there's those simultaneous games. Yeah, you'll have 6 matches a day for the third match day of the group stages.
That's
So
gonna be that's gonna be
it's
like fucking dopamine overload right there.
yeah, dude. Oh, dude, we're gonna be like Mike Tirico with the amount of hours we're gonna be shoosh, we're gonna be out of
Oh,
juice by
yeah.
the time July comes, man.
Oh, no,
Uh
I think we're gonna be good, man. Because you know why Mike Tirico was able to put in those hours is because they were stroking him into oblivion, so,
and
we had no, go
we're
ahead.
also yeah, we're the great thing is we're not a one man show, right? We got a huge cast of characters, uh,
Oh, yeah.
and everyone's gonna be offering something a little different. It's gonna be, a little bit of everyone's got their own unique flavor and unique way about going about things, and it's gonna be great, man. You're gonna get a lot of beautiful diversity on this in terms of how we talk about the tournament, how we interpret it, how we see it, how we and how we experience it. So it's gonna be great. And I'm just happy to be doing, be a part, be a small part of it, as I'm sure you are as well. The both of us. Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
it's gonna be a great
An
time,
honor and
but
a privilege of a lifetime, man. It really is,
yeah.
I heard Alexi Lawless say this earlier, before the first match, because I wanted to do some due diligence and I didn't listen to the whole pregame, but I tried to hear bits and parts, and it obviously, we're not trying to compare ourselves to Fox Sports coverage. We want to just do our own thing. But he did say that it is a responsibility to cover the beautiful game and to cover it. And that's the way that I think you and I and everyone else looks at it is it's something that we feel deeply about. And like you mentioned, everyone's got their own different flair and different ways of looking at it. But here we are, the first to 39. I mean, probably more than 39 to be honest with you, but 39 days essentially.
Mhm.
Uh, and so we started off at the Estadio Azteca,
Oh,
Mexico, South Africa. And I know the Mexican national team near and dear to your heart, but you can elaborate further on, with your national teams, plural. So I want to set it to you, man. I want to give you the floor and take me through what that opening match was like for you.
yeah. So, like you said, I consider myself very fortunate and lucky, and I'm proud of my background and my parents, and where my ancestry comes from, and like you mentioned, 3 national teams. I mean, it's pretty cool. It's something I never take for granted. Every World Cup, anyone who knows me, anyone who's close to me, all my close friends know this. Obviously, how passionate I am about, my not, my heritage. And in some ways, I think it'd be actually a good conversation later on down the line. But I always, sometimes I am envious of people who do have kind of like, they have one sort of nationality because it's like they get to really hone in on like that they get that's it's very there's a lot of depth to how connected they are to their culture. And um I guess growing up in kind of a mixed sort of a mixed culture of a family, it's cool because you get to experience different parts, different flavors, different different languages, different personalities and characteristics and all these different things. But then also there's like a an element of, in some ways you almost feel like you don't have an identity because it's um I don't know. Like I'll give you, so for just a big brief background, we'll eventually talk about the games, I promise. Brief background is y- on my mom's side, my mom was born and raised in Mexico. Um, she's from Michoacan. She moved to the States when she was a young girl, um, immigrated here with her family. And so on my mom's side, they're full Mexican. And then, and on my dad's side, my dad was born in the States, but my dad's mother was born and raised in Germany, grew up in Germany, moved here when she was, I believe, in her early 20s. Um, and so there's that element. And then on my dad's side, his father is half German, half Italian. So he there's so basically, long story short, and again, anyone who knows me, anyone who's close to me has heard this story a million times. I love to run it into the ground, but maybe it's just an indication of how much, I guess, how much pride I have in it. Maybe a little too much at times, but yeah. So I'm Mexican, I'm German, I'm Italian, and of course I'm an American. And obviously, when I say those things, it may sound a little disingenuous because I don't speak Italian, I don't speak German. My Spanish is very broken. I was a lot better at my Spanish has honestly deteriorated a little bit over the years, unfortunately. But I it doesn't change the fact that my lived experiences um, are connected with those cultures, and that's who I am. And I know, and anyone who's listening to this can certainly relate, I'm sure. Like I said, we got a great, beautiful, diverse group of characters, of people that are part of this family. um so we all come from different places, and a lot of things that connect us as well, like we talked about last night, Ryan. So yeah, so something that and especially, so that background that I have, something that obviously I think about, I kind of experience on a daily basis. But every 4 years, especially during the World Cup, it's something that really, it's something I take deep. I'm deeply passionate about. Um, so because it all comes down to family, and you know where you're from. It all comes from where your family obviously is from, and how they grew up and their experiences, and their entire lives devoted to making sure that their their children are better off. And so it's like, almost like, I guess I see it in some ways as like a, um I guess, giving back to, in some ways, by wearing the Mexico shirt, by wearing the Germany shirt, the Italy shirt, and the U.S. shirt. I mean, I got plenty. I got more. I mean, I have an embarrassing amount of U.S., Mexico, Germany, and Italy jerseys in my closet. And so, like I said, for someone who's, if you look at me in person, if you've seen me in real life, you might look at me and think you have. I mean, you might never guess that I'm any of those things, but based on, I guess, stereotypes and just what we perceive as, you know whatever a Mexican or an Italian or German is supposed to look like. But it's something that, in some ways, I guess it's like part of the passion, and it comes from, just like, I guess it's me. I view it maybe in some ways as giving back, or giving. It's like a expression of gratitude to my parents and my grandparents, and everyone before me and my brothers, who have who have contributed to being able to, putting me in the position where I am today, where I have a great, loving family, and grow up have grown up in a really good environment. So there's much like how you were talking about last night, um, on your own behalf and your own personal experience and personal upbringing. So that's something that definitely connects us. And I know you and I are both eternally grateful for the sacrifices that our parents have made, um, and their parents, our grandparents, and everyone before them. So yeah, it's a it's definitely something like I said, take a lot of very passionate about, take a lot of pride in. So and like I said, one of those countries is Mexico. I'm half Mexican. And so uh, today was obviously a big monumental day. Anytime Mexico play in a World Cup, um, it's huge. Not just for me or my family, but the country. I mean, you see it all the in any tournament. You see it anytime Mexico play at the Azteca, or even we play a lot of friendlies in the United States, and even in United, whether we're playing at Jerry World or in Glendale, Arizona, or at the Rose Bowl, that those places are jam packed with, you know, Mexicans, Mexican Americans, Chicanos, just and it's beautiful. Like you can see, and I think part of something I'm really grateful for is that, like, I happen to love football, and the nations, my background, my up my heritage. It just so happens that I come from three of the most football crazy nations in the history of the world. So I mean, Mexico, Germany, and Italy. It doesn't get more. Um, I mean, that's football royalty in many ways. So, and I didn't get to choose that. I was just lucked into that. So, but yeah, yeah, man. It was a little bit of an emotional day too, just because just the again the connection to family. Unfortunately, a lot of Mexico games that I got to enjoy in 2010 and 2014 were with loved ones who are no longer around. But every time I watch Mexico, I always feel like I feel like they're with me, and they're and it's yeah, man. It's it was, I mean, on the way home from work today, it was definitely emotional. I was, because I recorded the game. I obviously didn't watch it live, because I was at work, and I, watched it when I got home to after work to watch with my family. Um, but just on that drive home, I kind of like all the highlights, the flashbacks of South Africa 2010, Brazil 2014, um, and you know, and I say those two tournaments because those were the tournaments where I guess, the football memories were kind of originated from, and also where I experienced those were the last tournaments I experienced with some of the aforementioned loved ones who are no longer with us. But my grandmother and my aunt, who I was very close to, both hugely passionate Mexico fans. Especially my grandmother, she loved Chicharito, man. That was her favorite player. Anytime we would watch Mexico, and he was, for from a period of like 2010 to about 2016. I mean, Chicharito is the high, the Mexico's all-time leading goal scorer. So, there was a lot of great moments that I got to experience with my grandmother watching Chicharito, and so he's a player who holds a special place in my heart. Ironically, actually, we talked about the Fox coverage. He's part of the Fox coverage. I don't know if you saw him. Uh,
Yeah.
and yeah, so that was pretty cool. A little bit of a full circle to some degree. Um, so even if he's not with part of the team anymore, obviously to see him part of the coverage is pretty cool. But yeah, man. So yeah, just like I said, got home, watched the game, and yeah, and like it's kind of going back to what I said in the beginning. It was hard to believe in some ways. Like, holy smokes, it's here. Like the tournament we've all been talking about, previewing, and it's finally here. And now that it's here, let's bask in it. Let's just enjoy it. We all deserve it. You know we all earned this. So 4 years of waiting, and it's finally here. And um, yeah, as for the game itself, look, man, I actually predicted a 3-1 win for Mexico, so a 2-0 win somewhat kind of went how about how I expected. And I guess a little bit surprised in the lineup that was put out with one position in particular. I did think Gilberto Mora was going to start in the midfield alongside Brian Gutierrez and Eric Lira, but he wasn't. I understand that. I mean, that young kid, 17 years old, but I mentioned him because he's someone who, and I texted you about it prior to the game today. That he's someone I see him, and I think most Mexican fans see him as you know kind of like the shining sort of beacon of hope for the future, for the Mexican national team, also for the president as well. I mean, like I said, he's 17 years old, and I was a little surprised. I guess he maybe not too surprised at the end of the day that he didn't start, but I do think he's gonna play a role in this team, and I would love for him to play a significant role. Um, if you watch him, he's 17, but like he's got sort of the moxie, sort of like the composure that a player who is he plays more like he's 27 than 17. He's not the most physically imposing guy. You know, kind of a little bit undersized, but I mean, how many times have we seen sort of midfielders with his stature uh, their physicality or lack thereof is of really no consequence. Think about Xavi, Iniesta, or guys like David Silva. I mean, these guys were not physically imposing, but I mean, they had with the ball at their feet. It was I mean, it was like they were magic. So I'm not comparing Gilberto Mora to, saying that he's gonna be the next Xavi or Iniesta. But he's an exciting player for sure, and yeah, and I'm really excited to see his whether it's substitution cameos or whether he's gonna start against Korea in the second match. It'd be awesome to get some exposure to him. Awesome for him to get exposure to a moment, a setting like this. Because like I said, I think he's a really special talent, and I think in a few years, European teams will definitely come calling. He just re-signed. He signed a new contract with his club team in Mexico, Liga MX, uh, with Tijuana. So probably gonna increase that the release clause. So that's probably what the purpose of signing that contract was, lock him down a little bit before the European clubs eventually do come calling. But yeah, and another player who's a little bit older but still young, relative. I mean, 22 years old, Brian Gutierrez. He's another guy that really stood out to me. Not so much maybe today. I thought he was a little bit. Um, Maybe a little bit uneven in his performance. Um, Lost the ball a couple times, but he there's elements about his game that definitely you can see like okay, this guy can play. And like I said, 22 years old. Um, he was really impressive in the pre-World Cup friendlies, especially the game against Serbia last Thursday. And he's a player that I'm really excited to watch too. Maybe one of those next players to I guess uh, that'll be part of the next generation of Mexican players. So uh, yeah, and I just want to highlight those two guys real quick before we talk about I guess the rest of the squad. One no Alson Gutierrez. Yeah, he was I don't know if you know, but he was someone who could have represented the U.S. As well. There's several players on the Mexico squad um, who had uh, that option. Um, so yeah, someone I'm really excited about for sure. So yeah, keep an eye out for him and Mora and this tournament. But as for the rest of the team, yeah, man, it was look, the game itself was a little bit it was a bit slow paced, like it felt like there was some periods in the game where it was just kind of felt like both teams were kind of walking and just content to play around the back and a lot of stops and starts. I'm sure I haven't really gone into read any of the post match coverage or articles or read the social media stuff, but I'm sure there's going to be plenty of uh, conversation about the referee. It was kind of a stop start game. Wasn't the most beautiful game aesthetically, but you know what? Mexico did what they needed to do, getting the win in a game that, obviously compared to the next couple of games, this was the game that was like, this was the one where you had to have, because Korea and Czechia will both be tougher opponents, especially Korea. And then that game against Czechia, I think, is going to be a very physical battle between two physical teams. So, I mean, Czechia are a very I mean that game might be one of those that could be like an AFC North esque kind of game where it's a very physical, very stop start, and yeah, I mean I wasn't expecting this game to be particularly physical. Maybe I mean three red cards, bro. There was more red cards than goals, and I will say, and just I thought the first red card, that the South Korea player, I'm gonna butcher his
South
name,
Africa.
but sorry, South Africa. Yeah, South Africa. Sitole, the midfielder. I thought that was a justified decision by the ref. Brian Gutierrez, we were just talking about him, but he was he was really clever in that situation. He knew he was probably not going to be able to get a clear shot on goal, but he felt the pressure from behind him. He felt the defender kind of latching on to him, and so he positioned his body in a way where he could kind of manipulate the foul in a way so where it ended up maybe looking worse or more, more to the extent where the ref would be more prone to award the red card. I mean, Brian really was really good at manipulating his body in that situation. You watch the replay, it was really clever on his part, and so that red card I thought was completely deserved. Um, but the other two, both the red card that to Cesar Montes, our center back, and then the South Africa midfielder. I'm gonna mispronounce his name too, but Zemba Zwane. I don't know, man. Like, as far as this Wane red card, I mean, I know it was a bit. I mean, it was an off the ball sort of like, he kind of raised his arm a little bit. There was a bit of like a little clash. I'm not even like I mean, it wasn't throwing a punch or anything. Like it was, yeah. I think he put his arm close to the face of the Mexican player, but I don't know, man. I just thought it was a little bit harsh. I was one of those where maybe it's like. Yeah, I don't know. I thought it was a bit harsh. I felt a bit bad for the South African player there. You could argue, I mean, he needs. I mean, he's one of the more experienced players, and he needs to be a lot more composed in that situation. He shouldn't be putting himself in that position in the first place. Kind of lost his head a little bit, but I did think it was a little bit harsh. And then as for the Cesar Montes red card, I get it from a challenge standpoint. It wasn't a great challenge, and it definitely deserved a yellow card. But and it might be one of them where it's like, okay, it's not. Maybe it's a bit more than a yellow, but it's not. It's not a red, man. Maybe in a perfect world, it'd be like an orange card, but those don't exist. The challenge definitely was not great. Was misjudged, mistimed. But at the part that it happened on the pitch, it wasn't as if the South African attacker had a clear shot on goal. And if I recall, I mean, I have to watch the replay, but I'm pretty sure we had another man at the back to cover. So to make it, it wasn't like a 1v1 with the keeper situation, from what I recall. So a little bit dodgy referee decisions. It did feel like the ref lost a bit of control at certain points of the game. I was a little surprised at how aggressive or how physical South Africa presented themselves to be. Um, I in my brief little research about them before the match, I read that they had some pacey players that they were a bit of they were an athletic side. So I thought, I mean, part of the reason why I predicted a 3-1 was because in the previous recent friendlies for Mexico, surprisingly, we've been creating a lot of chances, and scoring, uh, pretty. We've been looking, good going forward. So I thought we would get the goals, and part of the reason why I thought South Africa would pull one back for themselves was because I thought they might present a bit of a danger on the counter, um, but they really didn't. I mean, I mean, if you look at the if you just go through, um, the flow of the game, it was like I said, it was pretty slow. And like I said, I don't know what the general consensus is a sentiment about how the game. I'm sure there's a lot of people saying that was the most boring opening match of all time, because we can't help but live and talk in hyperbole. It seems like all the time these days, but. And it might maybe it was honestly it wasn't the most spectacular game from a spectacle standpoint, but just it's the opening match of the World Cup. The Estadio Azteca is probably the most hallowed ground in all of football, world football, at least definitely in World Cup football. Pele winning the World Cup there in 1970, Maradona winning the World Cup there in 1986. The first time, first country to host World Cup three times. Um, and the Estadio Azteca has been part of it all three times. And so yeah, I mean I thought the atmosphere was pretty good. W I had and I don't wanna be negative all the time when I talk about, certain things, especially with regards to atmosphere. We'll see more as at the end of the day as the tournament goes on, but it was a good atmosphere. It was a good atmosphere in my opinion, but it was not definitely not what you typically see at the Azteca when Mexico plays, um, whether it be in a qualifier or whatever, but or even when America plays their club matches there, like it was not at that level of it wasn't like it wasn't at that level of sound and um and but I will again, and with the caveat that if we talk about how some of these atmospheres in the United States during this tournament might be a bit uh a little bit subdued, a little bit corporatey, a little bit more of the richer fans who are maybe a bit less passionate, as opposed to the more, if the tickets were a bit cheaper, maybe you would have had more of a hardcore, devoted, just everyday people, fans who are, going to provide a better atmosphere. It's like, we talk about it with the Super Bowl, right? I mean, the Super Bowl has zero atmosphere. And I mean, I don't think it's any coincidence. It's probably a large reason is because a lot of people who go to the games are just quite apathetic to the teams or the sport itself. Um, so to say, let's just if this was sort of a corporate uh, atmosphere relative to what the Azteca is usually like, it's still better. Like a corporate Mexican atmosphere is, or at the Azteca is still better than a corporate American atmosphere at a U.S. stadium, generally speaking. So even my mom, I was watching with the game with my mom, like I said, and she had mentioned like, it was the vibe did feel a little bit different from what we're used to when we watch the qualifiers, and or when like just when Mexico play at the Azteca, and like, games and of lesser importance, so yeah, and I think I want to obviously got to give a huge shout out to Raul Jimenez, um, scoring that goal. I think it was special in two, well, actually several aspects. For one, let's not forget, you know, him coming back from that injury that he suffered while playing with Wolves in the Premier League several years back, when I think it was on a corner kick, when he went up for a header, and instead of making contact with the ball, he made contact with a defender, um, and on the other team, and he smacked his head and on the side of his head onto the defender's head and fractured his skull. And I remember watching that game actually, and it was a really scary scene, and it was unfortunate because he was in the midst of having his best season with Wolves. Um, and he had a 2-year stretch there with Wolves, and I think the 2021 season, where uh, he was one of the more prolific goal scorers in the Premier League. And so as a Mexican fan, like, it was great to see him perform that way. And then when he suffered that injury, you just obviously you think about the man, the player before anything else. And you know never knowing if he was gonna be able to play again because of that. I mean, it was a scary sight. And but obviously ultimately he recovered. He plays with the with sort of like a padding, like a headband padding on his head. He plays now with a little bit more of a uh it's a bit smaller now, I think, probably because doesn't need as much protection, maybe because he's further removed from the injury. But yeah, man, for him to, and I mean, realistically speaking, he hasn't exactly been the same player since that injury. And obviously, no one's it's completely understandable. But he's still a significant player for the Mexican national team, because we the reality is this isn't the most this is probably one of the weaker Mexican teams of my lifetime. Certainly is weaker than the teams of 2010 and 2014. Um, and so, we are in a position where we are depending on a 35-year-old striker to score goals for us. And he is that man. And today he showed up, and he's still a quality foot. I mean, actually, Wolves, I believe, signed him a couple days ago, and I know Wolves fans are absolutely thrilled to have him back. He's really beloved at that club. And he's beloved with him in Mexico as well, because I mean, when he scored the goal today, you just saw the emotion in him. I mean, that celebration was just. I mean, that was. I mean, so far, World Cups are always about moments, and I think so far, like, I mean, it's only been one day, but that's one of the best moments of the World Cup right there already. Coming back from that injury, like I talked about, getting his first World Cup goal at the age of 35 at the Azteca is pretty darn cool. Especially in the context of coming back from such a you know scary injury. Um, and 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 the other layer of it is his father passed away 3 months ago. And so, very emotional for him. I mean, if you watch the goal over and you see him celebrate, he immediately starts to cry. And it's he's thinking about probably a combination of things, but most certainly he's thinking about his father first and foremost. And you know uh how cool would have been to for him to be there, to witness his son do that. um but I'm sure in the way that Raul celebrated, he knew that his dad was there. And yeah, man, that was awesome, man. So that was definitely cool. Also, obviously great for uh Quinones to score as well. He's had a really prolific, talking about goal scoring campaigns. I mean, he's been taking the Saudi league by storm. I mean, this year he's got 37 goals in 35 matches in the Saudi Pro League, or as a total, but in the season with his Saudi club. So, in his brief appearances prior to the World Cup, I haven't really seen much about his game to inspire too much confidence. I mean, he hasn't, been necessarily been able to translate that goal scoring prowess with his club to the national team, and much like Santi Jimenez, ironically enough. But if those guys, man, I mean, like, I know generally speaking, the I guess the vibe around this Mexican team is, again, no one. I'm not gonna. It's not the team of it's not the teams of the 2000s or the early 2010s. It's just not. Um, Talent wise, there's definitely been we're undergoing a transition period, with the likes of Gutierrez and Mora, and coming up. But and kind of um but yeah, man, if those guys, if Jimenez, both Jimenez, forwards, and Quinones, if they can, just step up their game just a bit, for this tournament, that would be huge. and because El Vasco, the coach, Javier Aguirre, he's gonna be setting up. He's ever since he's taken over the team, he's been he's done a good job of like kind of refining the squad of just I guess being a bit more um I guess being a bit more composed in the shape and how we play. We're a bit more solid as a unit. So I think defensively I feel pretty good about the squad defensively. Johan Vasquez has had a great season with his club at Genoa and Serie A. So he's kind of, and in some ways it's kind of come out of nowhere to some degree. And he's a really solid center back. I know we talking about Cesar Montes. He got the red card, which I thought was a bit unjustified. But look, I mean, and he's been one of our stalwart center backs for the past several years, and he's always been solid enough. Um, so yeah, I mean, if there's one player that was a bit dodgy today, I thought it was a goalkeeper. There's a couple times where Raul Rangel had a couple moments where he was kind of bobbling the ball, or he kicked the ball out of play, and a little bit dodgy passes to the center backs. But otherwise, it was a good performance. It wasn't sexy, wasn't something that's gonna wow you like some of the football we've seen in recent times with PSG and Bayern Munich in the Champions League, or Barcelona. But at the end of the day, as a Mexican, look, played well enough. We got the 3 points. We won the game that we needed to win. And there was enough good things that came out of it, to hopefully keep the good momentum going. So I know that was a long-winded uh, diatribe that I just went on, but yeah, man, those are my thoughts on the game. Would love to hear how you thought. I mean, I know you said you watched both this game and the South Korea Czechia game, which ended not too long ago. So I just want to get your thoughts as someone, especially as a bit more of a neutral. You're not going to be as as biased as me. Would love to hear your thoughts on both Group A matches that you saw today, and just the match on the field, and also everything around it with atmosphere,
Oh,
coverage.
I
I know
mean,
advertisements, stuff like that.
yeah, that's gonna be probably a 40-minute diatribe itself, man. Uh, but no, you know what? I thought everything you said was brilliant, man. I felt like I was, I mean, that was a treat to be a part of and just be able to listen to that. And I think a lot of what you said was, I don't think I could have said any of that better than how you said it. So basically, a lot of what I'll say will just piggyback off of what you said. I'll basically repeat a lot of what you said. Um, but yeah, as far as the opening match, you mentioned a bit as a neutral. Um, I guess I'll start with the on the pitch stuff because I think that that's a bit more straightforward. I think. To be honest with you, man, I thought South Africa heading into it, I wasn't sure what to expect. Um, I thought maybe they might put up a little bit of a fight. I mean, obviously, I had Mexico getting the 3 points. I mean, we talked about it the other day. Nobody, I mean, what is it, like two or three teams in the last however long it's been have gone into the Azteca and gotten some form of positive result. I mean, it's one of the toughest places in the world to play when you factor in the altitude,
Oh, the
just
heat,
the heat, the air around,
the smog.
fog. And then, on top of that, the atmosphere. I guess before I go to the on the pitch, I actually will go to the atmosphere since we're on the subject. I do, I do agree with you. I do think that you could, and that's actually what I'll mention with the second match as well, going to Korea and uh, Czechia. But yeah, I thought, the way I looked at it, I think you said it best. Like we've talked a lot about the Knicks in the last 24 hours, and there's been a lot of Knicks propaganda, in the States. And I mean, all of a sudden, I mean, all of these, everybody cares about the Knicks all of a sudden. It's like all these people randomly, I mean, so to me, one of the things we talked about yesterday was, okay, one of two things is going to happen. Either or maybe, it was somewhere in the middle of 2 things. Like, I always like to look at life like a Venn diagram, like, there's always a little bit of an overlap. So, what we kinda caveated was, okay, either there's these obscenely high ticket prices, the seats will get filled regardless, or there'll be empty seats depending on the match. Um, and, with the opening match with Mexico and South Africa, I mean, there wasn't an empty seat in the whole fucking Estadio Azteca. And to be honest with you, I don't even know if there was a single South African supporter in the entire stands, and if there was, you couldn't hear them. Uh,
Yeah.
I mean, and so I think you mentioned it where I think you said it really well, where you mentioned with the Super Bowl, I would actually compare it to the Knicks because everybody here in the States is all about the Knicks. I mean, even, when we preview tomorrow's matches, I saw something earlier on beloved cable television where they were talking about, well, hey, how does the U.S. men's national team get people to celebrate like the Knicks? And one of the things that I thought in watching that match, atmosphere-wise, the first match, and, the atmosphere thoughts for the second match are different than the first match, which is part of the conversation, but you mentioned that, a expensive corporate Estadio Azteca match would still be infinitely better than the Super Bowl, and you're right. I would even say that, like, look, the Garden's been rocking 2 games in a row. If the Spurs win game 5 on Saturday night, game 6 will be off the charts. I mean, I'm sure the get-in ticket prices for game 6 will be like 10 grand, and Yanni Infantino might bust a nut at those ticket prices. Uh, but I think that the Azteca at its well, you mentioned like, okay, it might not have been as loud as it typically is, and I think that's true. And I think a large factor in that is what we've mentioned, is the elephant in the room, it's the ticket prices. But even in that, I mean, it was still, I mean, if you were to put them side by side, I mean, which one do you think would be more intimidating to play in?
Oh.
And I think the one, we mentioned the caveat as well that we're going to come in throughout the tournament and be able to add these different data points. I think what was interesting to me was that because this was the opening match and the timing that it was at, it was a day match. You and I
Yeah,
talk about this a lot. You and I are big advocates of like more night matches across the sporting landscape.
absolutely.
Ironically, with Fox, we always talk about big noon kickoff
Oh,
and killing the atmosphere a little bit.
oh,
So I will be interested to see with 2 later kickoffs. I think it'll still be light out in both of those matches, but it'll be one of those matches kinda like those afternoon SEC games that you get
mhm,
towards the later fall where maybe the first half will be or it'll be light out, and then you'll see the transition from light to dark. Uh,
right,
so I'll be interested to see if that maybe supercharges the atmosphere a little bit, maybe cheap slightly, again, caveat slightly, because they're still probably obscenely expensive, but maybe slightly less expensive for the second and third matches. I know the second match, if I'm not mistaken, is in Guadalajara and then back at the Azteca for match day 3.
correct.
Um, but just as far as the atmosphere itself, I thought for the opening match, I was even though it might not have been as loud as it typically would be, it was still insanely loud.
Right.
You know,
Yeah,
it's just the
was.
ca it's just the it's just, for people who haven't watched a lot of matches at the Azteca and they listen to us talk about it, they can go in and watch previous matches and they can compare the sound difference. There was a it is a noticeable difference. I agree with that. But even if it was not as loud as it typically was or would be, it was still really loud.
Oh, yeah.
And I think you mentioned that maybe this isn't the strongest Mexican national side that they've had in the last 10, 20 years. But I think with that home field component and the fact that if they do end up topping the group, they're going to have the path run at least I think until the quarterfinals through Mexico and through the Estadio Azteca in the knockout rounds. I think it's whoever they end up playing, it's going to be hard to beat them, man. It will be.
Oh,
And
yeah.
then And then you mentioned Javier Aguirre. I thought my initial thoughts just go into the match itself. In the pre-match when I saw the lineups, and kind of having the context for the manager, I felt like it was pretty in line. I think they're definitely, you mentioned when they play Czechia, Mexico's gonna wanna, they're gonna be tough to break down. They're gonna be compact. A lot of people might call it conservative. But I think that's how they'll set up the majority of the tournament. They're just going to be tough to break down. They'll take their chances when they get them, and they're going to rely on that atmosphere and the altitude and the smog and all that to take them as far as they can get. And I thought it was, they had never won an opening match at the World Cup before, and they finally kind of shook those demons off. You mentioned they hosted twice. They didn't win either of those previous matches back in the day. They finally got that monkey off of their back. Um, there was you could feel in the atmosphere, when it was 1-0 early in the second half and they were still kind of playing it a little conservatively. You could sense a little bit of the frustration in the crowd a little bit. And then they made a couple of substitutions, and that's when Raul Jimenez, who you mentioned, scored the header on the second goal. And then again, shout out to him. I mean, coming back from a fractured skull, I mean, just the ability that he's still alive and functioning is a miracle in and of itself. But to be able to score a World Cup goal, his first World Cup goal at the age of 35, you mentioned it's only match day one, but when we look back on it, that will be one of the best moments of the World Cup. You also mentioned Julian Quinones, Golden Boot winner in the Saudi League. He opened the scoring. Ronwen Williams, the keeper, decided to play it short, and just you've always talked about this off the record, where sometimes in the desire to have this build up play from the back, sometimes you might just be better off booting it and live to fight another couple minutes. But they decided to play it short, not able to really secure the ball, and then next thing you know, it's 1-0, like 8 minutes in, and the match was over after that. To be honest, I mean, it was probably over before then, but it was over after that. And to be honest with you, I think South Africa showed nothing to me. Even before the two red cards, I mean, they had nothing, man. I
No,
don't think they had a sing. They didn't have a singular chance the whole match. I don't think that was actually worthwhile. It was over before it started in many ways. Mexico did what they needed to do. You and I always mention as well. It doesn't matter how you get it done, as long as you get the 3 points. That's all that matters. So I do expect more of this from Mexico moving forward. With the play style that they have, I think they'll be more conservative. They'll be more compact. They'll be tough to break down, especially come the knockout stages, which I'm pretty confident you and I could probably comfortably project that they will be there. I think that's how they'll continue to play, especially in those knockout matches when the competition gets stiffer. And they'll just, they're gonna just hang on and take their chances on the counter and see if they can maybe find a goal. But maybe come the knockout stages, especially when the opposition gets tougher, maybe you try to take it to a lottery of a penalty shootout, if nothing else. Um, but yeah, I give a lot of credit to the Mexican side for the way that, look, they took care of business. They got their 3 points. And then, to be honest with you, I will be interested to see how South Africa fares against Korea and Czechia, and what the atmosphere in those matches is like. Because, like I said, I don't know if there was a single South African supporter in the entire stadium. So I don't even know if they're there, or maybe they were there and you just couldn't hear them. I guess we'll find out match day 2 and 3. But I was very disappointed in South Africa. I wasn't expecting much. But I do think I was expecting a little bit more, like, hey, you know what? This is the opening match of the World Cup. Like, let's try and take it to these guys. But even, obviously, I know Mexico scored pretty early. And if South Africa was going to have any chance, they were probably going to have to keep it 0-0 heading into the half. And once Mexico scored, it was over. Um, but yeah, I just don't see how South Africa has much of a chance moving forward. I mean, shit, they might not get a single shot on target against Czechia, man. I
Uh,
mean, really, Czechia might muck that thing up to the point where South Africa might not even make it into the final third more than a handful of times.
oh,
Uh,
yeah.
and then, Korea might do some really disgusting things to them as well. So I was very disappointed in their performance. Not that I was expecting much, but on the Mexican side of things, I think they took care of business. You did mention the refereeing. I think anytime you see three red cards in any match, it kind of makes your eyebrows go up a little bit. I do think the first one was pretty obvious. I think you made a good point where Gutierrez did kind of. We talk about that a lot in the NBA where it's like a foul's a foul, but sometimes people get mad that people like manipulate the foul, but a foul's a foul.
Yeah, I mean,
Uh,
it takes skill, right? I
yeah,
mean,
it takes
he
skill. Like,
framed his body in a way
yeah,
where
oh yeah, like people get mad at that, but like there's a difference between I know you're not a big basketball guy again, but like people get mad at Shea Gilgeous Alexander because he gets to the free throw line a lot. And he's not the best example, but like I'm a big DeRozan guy. And when DeMar gets to the line, like you know, it's a skill because you're pump faking one, two, three times. You get the defender in the air, and then they jump, and then I mean, what are you gonna do? Not have them foul you, like because people don't want you to get to the foul line. Like, no, you're gonna take your two free throws.
yeah.
And I think it was kind of similar, but then the other two, I agree. Um, maybe a little bit harsher, but what's done is done. I thought Mexico made some interesting decisions, though. I mean, Edson Alvarez didn't start as well. I thought that was a little interesting to me as well.
Yeah, yeah, it
Um,
was.
but you know what? They got the 3 points, and that's all that matters at the end of the day. But I did think that that was fascinating. And to be honest, I'm sure he'll see the pitch at match day two now with Cesar Montes having a red card.
I think
Um,
yeah, I think you just slot him in there at that center back
Yeah,
position.
that
Yeah.
I think so. I think that's pretty cut and dry. You mentioned Gilberto Mora. Ironically, I mean, I know he wasn't directly involved, but as soon as he came on was when they scored the second goal.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I thought overall, as far as on the pitch and that analysis of it, I thought South Africa had no chance, man. I was a little bit disappointed in that just because, not that I expected them to have a chance, but just in terms of how they played. I mean, they really did show much of anything, and I don't really know if there was anything that they showed that would give me any sort of confidence that they can get any form of a result against Korea or Czechia in this tournament. Um, but again, I think Mexico is going to set up very similarly. They'll be tough to break down. I'll be interested to see the atmosphere for these Mexican matches, the next two matches that they play. Um,
Yeah, I think that game against South Korea is gonna be an awesome match, man.
oh yeah,
Especially in Guadalajara, and it's a rematch also of the 2018 group stage when Mexico and South Korea were also in Group F together
that's right.
alongside Sweden and Germany,
That's right.
um, and that was a great match too. Actually, I think Chicharito scored in that match. Uh, from a penalty. Actually, maybe I can't recall exactly, but no, actually, no. I think it was Carlos Vela off the from the penalty spot. But regardless, and Sonny scored. Actually, Sonny scored a kind of one of his more trademark goals, cutting in inside and shooting with his left foot, a beautiful curling shot. I've always said, I mean, Son, he's listed as right-footed, but sometimes I feel like, I mean, I'm being a Spurs fan watching Tottenham, watching plenty of Son over the years. I always felt like he might have a better left foot than he has a right foot. Honestly, he's one of those two-footed players who's dangerous. He's going to be obviously and a factor in that match. But yeah, man, I think that Mexico South Korea match um, next Thursday in Guadalajara at night, in the evening time will. I think that'll be great. I mean, I think it'll be a good atmosphere, great atmosphere. Korean fans, South Korea always, their fans travel well,
Yeah.
and I think actually just as a quick side note, I think it's gonna be a beautiful kit matchup too.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, and you know what? We unfortunately, I know we haven't done like or at least I haven't given my full predictions and previews for this tournament, but
Well, you're
I
going
think
to do that, so we're not worried about it.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I think I had Mexico. I had Mexico top the group. I had South Korea finishing second, and I was really very confident in that. Because Czechia, look, I mean, I'm just Czechia. I mean, honestly, it's a bit of a wonder how they qualified, how they made it out of out of the European playoffs qualifiers. Because I mean, when that group of teams that they were involved in during those playoffs, I mean, Denmark. The fact that Denmark, I mean, it's still hard to believe Denmark choked that tie away, um, the way they did. Because I mean, Denmark is, they might not be what they were in you know last couple Euros, or Euro 2020 specifically, when I thought, I actually picked them to be pretty significant dark horse for that tournament. Um, you know, but the fact that I just this Czechia team, they don't inspire much confidence. They got a couple nice players, but a lot they are some of their more important players are, are aging. Um, I know you've never been particularly inspired by your guy Patrick Schick.
Oh, man. Yeah.
um,
Oh, man.
but
Look,
I mean, they don't have, just to be a little blunt, they just don't really have. And hey, look, if they end up turning it around these next two matches, yeah, I'll own it. I'll be the first to say it. I was wrong, but they just don't really play football that well. They don't have that many good footballers who can play football. I mean, that's why I say I think that third match day against Mexico, I mean, Mexico, that game against South Africa today was a bit physical. Czechia are a physical side. I mean, that's kind of a
that's how
bit.
they qualified.
That's how they qualify. Yeah, I mean, not say, not, I don't, I won't go as far as say they're a one trick pony, but it's very much their mo. So I
Yeah.
think that's gonna be, if they're gonna have a chance, that's how they're gonna do it. But yeah, man, South Africa, Mexico, looking, I think today only confirmed what I think you and I both felt before
Yeah.
the
I
tournament.
I think, going to that South Korea Czechia match, I mean, I think maybe I was a bit higher on Czechia. Not even that I was high on Czechia, but I just thought, I figured that they were going to really muck that bitch up. That's what I was expecting. I figured, and they did. I mean, they actually scored first against Korea today, ironically off a set piece. And I thought when they went up 1-0, I thought, hey, you know what? Like they got the goal that they needed. Um, Korea were the better side the whole match. Even in the first half, they missed a couple of pretty solid chances. Your boy Sonny, had a couple of chances. Ironically, I know, the media conversation will be, hey, they took out Son and they scored twice, but it doesn't always work that way. Um, but I thought Korea were the better side. I do regret maybe overvaluing Czechia a little bit. It's not that I undervalued Korea. I just thought in that opening match, I thought it would be one of those things if they would have played match day 3, Korea would have wiped the floor. But I thought maybe, okay, the fact that they're playing match day 1, I just thought maybe the way that it's set up, Czechia would go in, they would take a point there, and that would set them up pretty nicely. And they were in pretty good position when they went up 1-0.
Hmm.
But credit to Korea, man. They kept plugging away. I apologize if I butchered this dude's name, but Hwang In Byom, I don't even know if I said that correctly or not. But I mean, he scored an otherworldly goal in the 67th minute. I don't know if you saw it or not, or anybody out there, but I mean, that was a thing of beauty. Um, and then I want to say it was in the 77th minute. Sheki, ironically, on a set piece. They put the ball in the back of the net, but it was a pretty clear and obvious offsides. And then a couple minutes later, Korea took the lead 2-1 on again, apologies if I butchered this dude's name. Oh Hyun Yu scored the match winner, ironically assisted by Hwang In Byom. So 2 goals in a span of about 13 minutes for South Korea. And look, they were the better side. I mean, even if you didn't watch the match and you just look at sometimes statistics don't always tell the whole story. But I think the statistics in this one, I mean, Korea had pretty much dominated every facet of the match, and they were a well-deserved 3 points. I thought Czechia's big chance was going to be to get a point in this match. And then the fact that they got 0 points, I think, kind of pushed them behind the 8 ball a little bit. where now they have to go against South Africa, and they really got to do some damage to South Africa, which I don't know if they're capable of doing that to the extent of putting like 3, 4, 5 past them. I don't know. That might be one of the tougher matches to watch in the whole tournament.
It
Uh,
might be, man.
you know,
Oh, jeez.
look, and so maybe I over. It's not that I was high on Czechia, but I just thought that like in the tournament setting that they were in, I just thought that okay, you know what, they could if they could get a draw against Korea, 3 points against South Africa, now all of a sudden things are looking pretty solid for them, even if they're not the most inspiring side. Because I did feel like okay, maybe the group. I mean, look, any other group that they were in, I think they're probably pretty comfortably, you're not putting them pretty high up, but I don't know. Maybe I overvalued them a little bit comparatively to what I actually feel, I guess, if that makes sense. But look, credit to Korea, man. I mean, they're always a fun side to watch, and
Oh, yeah.
the stylistic contrast, obviously, where Czechia, out there, they were doing everything in their power to, make that an ugly match, and Korea was really going for it. So look, the more deserving side won. Terrorism was defeated in many ways tonight. Ironically, in Guadalajara. Uh, so I give a
Yeah,
lot.
man.
Yeah, I give a lot of credit to Korea. They took care of business. I think you mentioned it. That stylistic contrast on match day 2 in Guadalajara between Korea and Mexico will be a treat. But something, we mentioned the atmosphere. You know, one of the things that stood out to me was there were some empty seats. Uh, Now, behind the goals, obviously, there was quite a bit of attendance. To be honest with you, we mentioned in the in the first match, I don't know if there was a single South African supporter. I don't know if there was a single Czechia supporter in the entire stands either. It felt like it was either Korean fans or Mexican fans who just wanted to show up and watch a match. Uh,
Really?
oh yeah, if you watch the match, it was just a sea of red and green and empty red seats. That was it.
Wow.
I'm not sure there was a single Czechia supporter in the entire building, which was very surprising to me. Maybe not super surprising, but obviously the Korean supporters always travel pretty well. Um, I'll be interested to see on match day 2 what the split is. With obviously the Korean supporters were able to get pretty sizable attendance for that match against Czechia, but what's that going to look like against the Mexican national team in about a week's time? Time will be, but honestly, the whole match, it felt like the Mexican supporters and the Korean supporters were getting along together, and they were just hanging out, having a good time. And it was, there was a decent amount of empty seats, not a lot. I'm sure there'll be a lot more empty seats in some of these matches in the United States between some of these teams with the ticket prices, which we'll probably talk about throughout the tournament. Um, but yeah, I think the deserving side won in Mexico, in Mexico and in South Korea. I think both deserving of the 3 points. Um, and there's no real controversy in that. The one thing we kind of talked about it a little bit, and I want to get your thoughts on this because I know you watched the Mexico match on Telemundo, which
Correct.
I'm not sure how they did it on Telemundo. I watched the Fox and FS1 broadcasts for both matches specifically, partly in reason so I could do my due diligence in being able to report on all these different facets. But we had talked about it last night with these hydration breaks. Being kind of a first of its kind, especially at the World Cup. And similar to what we kind of talked about earlier, where it's one thing to preview it, and it's one thing that, and then sometimes when it happens, one of two things happens. Like in a preview, sometimes maybe your brain's not fully up the, there might be a couple things that slip through the cracks, and then when it happens, you're like, hey, you know what? That makes so much sense. How did I not see that? How did I
Oh,
not?
yeah, 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 for sure, man. We're all human I
You
mean,
know,
there's
uh,
48 teams in this tournament.
Yeah,
It's a
and so,
lot.
like yeah, so, like, on the pitch,
Yeah.
I think, again, going back to Czechia, like, I was it's not that I was high on them, but I just felt like, "Okay, these guys are gonna muck it up," and in a three-match setting, so that slipped through the cracks for me a little bit, and I'll happily admit, and I should know better as someone who watches a lot of the AFC, not the AFC North, but, the AFC Football Federation. and Korea is always a pain in the ass to play against,
Oh,
and
yeah.
that's a sincere compliment.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, dude. I've when it comes to South Korea, there's teams that obviously I don't have like a, cultural sort of background in, but there's certain teams in the World Cup, every 4 years that I find myself just enjoying their presence. I enjoy their, them being there because I think they just add so much. And I think in many ways they're overlooked and underrated, not respected enough. But right at the top of that list is South Korea, Japan, Australia. Three AFC teams. Three teams who in recent tournaments, I mean, the most recent World Cup, all three advanced to the knockout stage. And then Japan beating both Spain and Germany in the group stage last tournament. You know, uh, 2018, how we won one of the best matches in that entire tournament. Belgium Japan. I mean, Japan were up 2-0 on Belgium. You don't remember that? And then Belgium came back and scored 3 goals to come back, and that third goal was came off a Courtois quick rollout to, I forgot who the player was, but it was a quick counter attack by Belgium. And I mean, Japan were very much in the driver's seat of winning that game, and um, moving on to the quarterfinals. And in 2010, I mean, Japan went as far as the round of 16. So did South Korea. Um, Australia put up a good fight in Group D with Germany and Ghana and Serbia. And then I'm going even further back, 2002, of course, which is, well, a bit of in a controversial sort of manner. South Korea made it all the way to semis. Obviously both South Korea and Japan were co-hosts in that tournament. So yeah, you know what? I mean, like, South Korea, Japan, Australia. I mean, we'll talk about the Japan and Australia as well. But I think and this is your region, so you can speak better to it than I ever could. But I always find myself when it comes to whether it's predictions or just from a just a pure fan, enjoying the spectacle standpoint. I love South Korea, Japan, Australia. So much respect for those sides. They're always tough to be, and they're always also well organized. It's tough to break down, and
oh,
just
yeah.
I mean,
Well-oiled
just
machines, especially Korea and Japan,
especially Japan, man. I mean,
oh, yeah, they
holy
don't beat themselves. They're like,
smokes!
yeah, I mean, honestly, Japan in every sport, man. I like
Ah,
it. It's
I
the
mean,
most. It's a huge compliment, man. Because I always like with baseball. I
oh
always
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, we
those.
talked about Yamamoto yesterday ad nauseum
Oh
off
yeah,
the record, dude.
we did talk about
Yeah,
Yamamoto off the record. Which while we're talking about it, I don't think. I mean, we talked. We can have the same conversation that we had off the record and just gotta throw that in there. Like that game, that postseason run that he had,
oh,
especially being able to pitch in game 6 and then come back a day later and pitch again, like, nobody does that, man, especially at 26,
oh, I know.
25, like, nobody's doing that, man. Um,
One of my
you know
favorite ball players too growing up was Ichiro Suzuki.
yeah,
And I just love everything about, I just love the way the Japanese ball players, baseball players, soccer players, they're just such a, I mean, they're just such a joy.
yeah,
They're not like the
they're
flashiest in many ways, but they're just so good, man. They got the fundamentals. There's no one
yeah.
better.
Yeah, I think, especially, both, like, it's one of those things where, they're about as robotic as humans can be, and I mean that as a compliment in that sense, where normally I'm not really a big robotic guy. Talk about that later, but like, in the sense that they're really, like you mentioned, it's not flashy, but they don't beat themselves. The fundamentals, like in baseball, man, like all these
Mechanics.
guys have yeah, the mechanics, they're all very similar.
Hmm.
Very, you could put like side by side splits of Japanese pitchers, for example, and maybe it looks slightly different, but you can tell that they've regimented it, they've practiced it so much that it's like breathing. And I mean, so they're well-oiled machines, and then same thing with the football team, and they're hard to break down. They don't beat themselves. And then that's not to say that, where some teams, like, again, going back to Czechia, like, yeah, they can muck it up. They're tough to break down, maybe. But, on the contrary, with the Korea, with the Japan, You mentioned Australia, like, yeah, they're tough to break down, but they also pose a threat going forward in open play and not just offset pieces. Um,
They
you
defended as a
know
unit too, you know, and
yeah,
they're
yeah,
all on the
yeah,
same page.
yeah.
I mean,
There's not
they
a
might
and there's no individualistic element to it. There's no
right.
selfishness, like, it's all for the betterment of the team, for the nation. It's bigger than one individual, which in some cases is not always true, but, with those sides, they're always consistent. You know what you're gonna get, and they seem every generation they churn out, even if they're different players. It's like a never-ending supply of similarly built teams and players, because they're always developing the talent from the ground up. There's a lot of, investment into the discipline and the structure of things. So yeah, look, we'll get to Japan later. They're a tough side to play against. They might even, we'll get to that. Like, they could very well top that group. I mean, it was a tough break. I think I saw earlier, Endo's going to be out, but even then,
Yeah,
Japan's
no
got some.
Matoma as well. Matoma's gonna I mean,
Yeah,
Matoma's
Matoma's a big. Oh, he's a really fun player to watch, man. And
oh,
like,
man. I gotta
uh,
give a shout out to my boy Justin. He's a huge Matoma guy too, and,
yeah, he's fun to watch, man.
yeah,
Um,
man.
but yeah, there is one thing I do want to talk about as well. We kind of touched on it, like, we talked about it last night a little bit with these hydration breaks, and it's just one of those things where, when we talked about it last night, like, you're prepared for it, you know that it's gonna happen, but when it actually happens, you're like, "Oh, holy shit." And when I was watching the first match, Mexico, South Africa, around the 20 something minute mark, they went to a powered by Powerade hydration break, and I went to commercial for about 2.5 minutes. Um,
Jeez.
and that was a very jarring experience for me, man, because I was
In the
sitting
middle of
there.
a soccer game, man.
Yeah, and you know what I was thinking to myself, man? Because then my thought was this: if you can do that in the first half of the first match of the World Cup, there's nothing that's gonna stop you from doing
No.
that when it's, Australia and Turkey at 9 p.m. or something like that. Or Austria and Jordan or whatever it is. Like, there's nothing stopping you from doing that. But then my other thought was this, because same thing happened in the second half of Mexico, South Africa, and then on FS1, same thing happened. Ironically, this was what fascinated me. So in the Mexico match, Raul Jimenez scored, and almost immediately afterwards, they went to a hydration break. And then in the first half of the Korea-Czechia match, they went to a hydration break, and then you could tell that the flow of the match completely changed for the rest of that first half after the hydration break. And then in the second half, when Korea scored, they didn't immediately have a hydration break. And then, like, 2 minutes later was when they had a hydration break, which I don't know how that works. Like, um, and then all four times they went to commercial, on Fox and FS1. And, my thought process was this, like, I was fully prepared for it. I knew that that was going to happen, but for it to actually happen was still very surreal for me because, part of why I've always loved football is because it's the one sport that doesn't have commercials, honestly. And I know, like, with the club game, they have the ads on the jerseys, and then they've got the video board of ads or whatever the fuck they call it around the pitch. And that's how they make their sponsorship money. But my whole thought during the first opening day, beyond the on the pitch stuff, beyond the atmospheres, was these hydration breaks, which, look, let's just call it what it is. They're media TV timeouts. Um, and one of the things we talked about yesterday with ticket prices is one of two things happens. Either people pay the prices and it justifies it, or people don't pay the prices and some of the matches are emptier. But either way, if you do that and there's no limited to no pushback, there's nothing that's stopping FIFA from doing that every other tournament for the rest of our lives and generations to come if there's no pushback, right?
Yeah.
Because once it's like anything else, like, it goes back to, like, even in this coun like, with COVID, when it was like, okay, the country shuts down, inflation, it's the buzzword of 6 years ago, and we're still talking about inflation. Like, you know, once prices go up and people pay those prices, companies, organizations, businesses don't bring prices back down. And I had a similar feeling with these hydration breaks, which again, let's just call it what it is. They're media TV timeouts. And I don't know if people are fully prepared for a full tournament of that, number one. But then beyond that, where I feel like this just sets the precedent for this to be the case moving forward for every match, club matches, other international competitions. Um, and it's like once you get one, you get one timeout a half. What's stopping them from introducing like a couple of coaches timeouts at that point? You get like one media timeout, and then you get like one or two timeouts a half. And then the next thing you know, there's like all these like stop and starts. Like, I don't want to sound all dystopian, but I thought that was kind of what I was thinking. It's like, damn, you know what? Like they actually did it. Like they actually implemented commercial breaks into football, which blew my mind. Not because I was surprised, but because it actually happened. Um, so I thought that I don't know if they had that on Telemundo or not. I didn't watch the Telemundo coverage. I watched it on Fox. Did they have commercials on Telemundo?
So during the hydration breaks, they had like a portion of the screen. So the screen would kind of minimize the screen the video of the match would kind of minimize slightly, and then like a quadrant, or I guess a quarter of the screen would be taken up by and like a Michelob Ultra, an advertisement. So it would almost be kind of resemblant of, in the NFL. We'll be back for after 30 seconds from these messages from Verizon or whatever. And they got half the screen showing the game, the other half the screen showing the ad.
And the ads
Um,
are always bigger.
well, actually, in this game, no, the ad it was like
Oh, the ad was smaller.
smaller, like
Oh,
25% of the screen.
oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, it was like in an L shaped.
Okay.
Yeah. So it took up the left side of the screen and the bottom of the screen, and then the game was in the vast, still, I mean, still majority. It took up more of the space, but they didn't like leave the game like entirely.
Okay. Yeah, no, on Fox, they left that motherfucker, man. They couldn't have cut the commercial any faster if they tried, man.
That doesn't
Um,
surprise, does it?
no,
Oh
definitely.
man,
And so
no,
I don't know if people were fully prepared for that or not. I mean, I think we talked about it last night. So, I mean, I think we were ready for it, you and I at least, but at least, to see
it
it
doesn't
actually
take away
happen.
from the striking like just it does it's still striking when it
Oh
happens.
yeah, like yeah, it's again, we keep edging this Brendan Sorsby thing, but like when we get to the Brendan Sorsby conversation, which knock on wood is gonna happen, but funny enough with this Brendan Sorsby thing, man, it's funny because like every time I'm ready to lock that in, like some new shit comes out that I'm like, ah shit, now I gotta incorporate, it just keeps adding the information just keeps getting more, but like when we get to that episode, which will be its own episode, hopefully in the next couple of hours or so, next 24 hours or so. Um, with that, like it's the perfect like that's a good way of like comparing and contrasting where it's like they're totally different conversations, but they connect together. Where like with the ad breaks, like was I surprised? No. But was it jarring? Yes. And it's kind of similar with the Brendan Sorsby thing. Like I think the aftermath out of it, like, "Oh my god, how could this happen?" Like, "Oh my god, we're so shocked," and I'm sitting there like, "Why are you guys surprised? What are we so surprised about? Did you not see that coming from a mile away?" But then at the same time, it's still like, "Holy shit, that actually happened."
Yeah.
You know,
Very much.
so
I
I
didn't
think
even
it's
know that's what happened in the Fox, to be honest. Like I said,
yeah.
I
Oh,
watch
yeah,
all
no,
Mexico
yeah,
games
yeah, you
on
watched on
in
Telemundo.
Spanish.
Yeah, yeah, no, they dude, I shit you not. For because I watched both matches, so, 4 hydration breaks, 4 commercials, and if you do that on the opening day of the World Cup, you're gonna do that throughout the whole tournament. And then, going back to Fox too, I mean, look, I don't wanna bash it, I give credit where it's due, it wasn't all terrible. Um, but, they've done this in their previous tournaments that they've had, and obviously, it's no secret that they were gonna do it, but one of the things that's always fascinating to me is that, like, there's definitely a mandated, like, "Oh, let's talk about the United States match while this other match is going on," sorta deal,
Oh
which
yeah.
I you know, but I think that's a good way to set up the stage for a preview for tomorrow, and,
Yeah.
we got, Group B, 12 o'clock Pacific time. You've got Canada and Bosnia Herzegovina, 12 o'clock in the afternoon. And that match is going to be in Toronto. And then not too far from where you and I are at 6 p.m. Pacific is going to be the Group D opener between the United States and Paraguay at a SoFi Stadium in Inglewood, California. Um, the remaining two host nations, again, we mentioned Mexico today. Those are the two matches tomorrow. And then, as you alluded to earlier, come Saturday is going to be that four-match extravaganza from, day to night. And it's just going to be a full-on blitz for the next 30 something days after that, especially.
Oh yeah. I'm really looking forward to on Saturday. I'm really looking forward to a 9 p.m. kickoff between Australia and Turkey at BC Place in Vancouver,
Oh, yeah,
Canada.
man. Listen,
We got some late night kickoffs
oh, yeah,
coming
look,
up.
the degenerate in me cannot wait.
Austria, Jordan.
Yeah, look, the degenerate in me cannot wait for those 9 p.m. matches, man.
Oh
Because
man,
I know some people don't like that shit, but I love that, man. I'll live for that.
dude, are you kidding me? It's the Pac-12 after dark in World Cup. In the World Cup, man.
Oh, yeah,
We
and
got World Cup.
you already know both of those matches, like, all those 9 p.m.
Oh,
matches are gonna be cracked out for sure.
oh, absolutely, man. I mean,
That
so
Australia, Turkey Saturday night at 9 p.m. is probably gonna be on crack, man.
oh,
Like,
yeah, and then the Austria Jordan one, at in Santa Clara on, next this upcoming Tuesday night, and then we've got, let's see,
this is Turkey and Paraguay at 8 p.m.,
Tunisia,
Tunisia,
Japan
Japan
at
at
9 p.m. on a Saturday night
oh,
in Monterey.
give it to me, baby.
Oh, and then Jordan L man, there's yeah, a lot, and you know what? It's like, it just so happens that a lot of those, late kickoffs are like kind of those kind of like just the full-blown degenerate, like, just, you know,
Pac-12 after dark, man, like, those are the
yeah,
diehards for a reason, you know?
yeah,
Oh, it's
getting
like,
some
people are like, "Oh, we don't," I always remember, like, the college football playoff
oh,
stuff where it's, "Yeah, we can't stay up late enough to watch the Pac-12, so we gotta blow it up and put them in the Big Ten," like,
oh, man,
that's
it's like Cal and Wazoo at Pullman, 7:30 PM. I mean, that's what Tunisia, Japan, or, Jordan, Algeria, and Santa
oh,
Clara, or
well, listen, the Pac-12
at 8 PM.
coming
It's gonna
down.
be awesome.
The Pac-12 is
And
rising.
ironically, yeah, and it's happening in Pac-12 country.
Yeah,
I mean, West
Pac-12
Coast, baby.
West Coast, baby, represent.
So,
But I do wanna get your thoughts on these 2 matches, like you mentioned earlier, like we're gonna go through, day by day, and that'll serve as your tournament predictions as we go through it essentially. Uh, you know, so with Canada and Bosnia Herzegovina at 12 p.m. and then the US and Paraguay at 6 p.m. I'm interested to kind of see what your thoughts are on those two matches. And then, obviously on Saturday, we've got some Group B, Group C, and the other Group D match in a four-match slate from 12 in the afternoon Pacific to 9 p.m. Pacific. Well, actually later than 9 p.m. because kickoff probably, that match will be done around 11. Um,
yeah.
so I want to get your thoughts on some of these matches real quick. Maybe even the Saturday matches if you'd like, but definitely the Friday matches. And then if you want, we can touch the Saturday matches as well. um, which is Group B, and then obviously Group D, and then the way it goes out of order, where Saturday is the two Group C matches, sandwiched in between the other Group B and the other Group D match.
That's right. Yeah, so tomorrow, like you said, we start off day two in Toronto with the other co-host, the second of three co-hosts, beginning their tournament. Canada hosting Bosnia Herzegovina, who, of course, would be remiss if I mentioned Bosnia Herzegovina here at the tournament at the expense of the four-time world champions Italy, which you almost have to mention it because if you look at the group, if you look at Group B, I think whatever we may all think of Italy at this point in time, obviously the dynamic of the group changes at least at least visually, and on paper. But because it's Bosnia, and because it's Canada, obviously playing at home, in Toronto, in the birthplace of Canadian football, um, I think this is Canada's game for the taking. I mean, I think Bosnia will be watching that playoff against Italy. They don't have a lot of big name players, obviously. This isn't, they don't, there's no Miralem Pjanic from years past. Edin Dzeko obviously is still with the
Shout out
team.
to him, still kicking it all these years later.
40 years old, coming off a season with Schalke. He's kind of been a bit all over the map in Europe in recent seasons with Schalke, Fiorentina, Fenerbahce, Inter, Roma, and obviously he had those great seasons with Man City.
Yeah.
Um, so, yeah, man. They do have some nice players. They actually have an American, a player who is I think born in Wisconsin. His name escapes me, but I
Yeah,
remember him
well,
what's that?
I know the guy you're talking about, but his name escapes me as well. I remember that
Yeah,
because they brought that up in a Bosnia-Italy match.
yeah, exactly. Yes. I mean, well, yeah. Ironically, we were talking about Fox, and that game was on Fox, and our good friends John Strong and Stu Holden were calling that match, as if that game couldn't have been even any more insufferable. Uh, and one of the things that I'm glad they did mention actually was the fact that, yeah, one of the players on Bosnia, I believe he played on the right wing. Um, he was born and raised in Wisconsin, and obviously when I heard about that, I was like, okay,
There
that's
you go.
interesting.
Vladimir Baraktarevic or something like
Yeah,
that.
there you go. Yeah,
Butch
PSV Eindhoven.
There you go. I butchered his name, but anyways, I didn't mean to interrupt you,
No,
but
no,
continue.
no, no worries. Thank you. That's awesome. That's right. That's right. Yeah, because he did. Yeah, I see him. Yeah, he played on the right hand side, right wing, um, and yeah, when they mentioned that he's born in Wisconsin, I mean, it obviously perked my ears up a little bit, and I just naturally I paid a bit more attention to him when he was on the ball, and he was he's a nice player. He's got some good skill to him. He's pretty tidy on the ball, good dribbler, really good dribbler, and so he was someone that caught my eye in that team on that night. And they defend as a great as a unit too. I mean, it's a team that they're gonna be solid at the back. They're gonna understand the plan the mission, so to speak. But I do wonder if they will open up a bit against Canada. You know, this is a group where I don't think either of us would I think both of us would agree that this is a group that's not um particularly stacked in terms of I mean, I think if you're Bosnia, you've got to fancy your chances to, you know, I mean, right, I think you got a decent chance to finish second. I mean, Switzerland are a team that you know, uh, kind of reluctantly, I've accepted the fact over the years that they are just a really, I mean, they talk about well-oiled, machine. That's what Switzerland is, man. They don't beat themselves. I was always someone in the past who was just kind of a Switzerland hater in a way because I just couldn't stand playing them. They've had plenty of really good matches against Germany over the years, but I think after a certain time, you just kind of come to accept and just come to suck it up a little bit and just acknowledge like they're good, man. Like that Switzerland or I mean I don't think anyone would, would underestimate them at this point, but that's a good team right there. And I think if you look at Group B, I have them finishing top the group. And I don't really, I'm not really too bothered by the other teams. I mean, Canada obviously playing at home is going to be give them a huge advantage in theory at least. Jesse Marsh is an interesting coach, a bit of a Ted Lasso vibe to him. But and I say that as like in a not in a demeaning way, but like he's just kind of a I don't know. He kinda like got that little dorky personality. You take it from one dork, to I mean, coming from a dork, like myself, so I would know when I see one, but, he's, you know, I think he's done a good job of, like, inspiring this Canada team, obviously playing again on home turf. They're gonna be ready, they're gonna be, excited to show out. Not having Alphonso Davies, obviously as a Bayern fan, uh, I'm obviously, really he's a fantastic player, but in recent years it's just been had horrific luck with injuries. And for him to get injured right before the World Cup, in the Bundesliga season, when he was going to be the focal point of the Canadian team, um, it's a real big bummer for him. I'm hoping he can make he'll be fit for possibly the last couple group stage matches, but he's not going to be playing tomorrow. I don't I would be shocked if he did. Um, so that will be a big miss. But Canada do have some nice players around in addition to Davies. And Kyle Larin has been a really good striker forward for them over the years. He's played in played in the last World Cup. Also, just a solid striker. But Jonathan David, someone who I think I've been actually pretty fond of. Didn't have the greatest of seasons at Juventus this past year. But he had several good years with Lille and Ligue 1. Um, and he's going to be someone that they're going to be depending on if they want to, go far in this tournament, or as far as they can. And um, Ismail Kone is another player. Tyjon Buchanan out of Villarreal. They've got they got some nice players. I actually just a quick caveat, quick side note. In 2022, they were in a group of death with Belgium, Croatia, and Morocco, which I thought was, top of my head, I'm pretty sure that was probably the strongest group in the at least on paper. Believe it or not, I actually had them go. I actually picked them to go out of that group or to advance out of that group. I had them finishing second to Croatia. I believe I had Croatia finishing first, and Canada finishing second, Morocco third. Um, and yeah, I mean, yeah, Belgium. I was not a big Belgium, and so I guess I was correct on about the Belgium part, but I was dead wrong on the Canada part because they did not make it out of the group stage. They finished dead last, but I will say they did put up a good fight in each of those games. I mean, that game against Belgium, they actually, they were in a good position to win it, but you know, a young Canadian team, first World Cup in a long time, um, against a very very experienced Belgium team. They didn't have I guess the tactical nous to be able to put that game away. And even in the game against Croatia, I mean, I believe if I recall correctly, they scored in like the first 5 minutes of that game. But they just completely they kind of just they didn't have the professional, like I said, they weren't able to hold on and to kind of to finish the job there. So they're out of the group stage 4 years ago, even though I was pretty high on them. Um, and so this time around, I think it's a much more manageable group, obviously, and I do think they'll get out of the group. Um, I have them finishing second. I have the Swiss finishing first. I have Bosnia finishing third, and Qatar. I really don't rate. I think for. I mean Qatar. There was, it seemed like for a couple years they might actually be doing something with their national team. Obviously, there's been a lot of infusion of players who are from other countries who acquire citizenship in Qatar, if I recall, if I'm not mistaken. And so, there was a moment where it seemed like they might be kind of, yeah, building something there, but I can't see them finishing anywhere other than last in this group. So yeah, and so because I have the Swiss finishing first, yeah, I think this game between Canada and Bosnia is going to be big for the group, big for both teams. I think both teams will be going for it. Like I said, that's why I think Bosnia will probably maybe not be as maybe not be as much in a shell as they were against Italy. Certainly, although even against Italy, they really they came out and played like they were confident on the ball. They didn't really treat it as if they were playing a four-time world champion. Bosnia, I was really impressed with I mean the fact that they made it out of that playoff. I had Wales taking care of them in the semis of that playoffs, and then even if they even when they did get past Wales, it was like, yeah, I mean, the fact that they beat Wales, they went to Cardiff and beat Wales, and then they beat Italy in Bosnia, and I mean, that was one of the cooler venues I've ever seen a football match on TV, as a side note. But the fact that they're here is pretty awesome. They were, like I said, they were in the tournament 2014. You'll be very familiar with them because they were in the Iran group with Argentina, Nigeria, as
Yeah,
well.
that's right. Yeah, yeah, I remember. You mentioned Edin Dzeko earlier. The fact that he's still around is remarkable. I mean, he used to be one of, you go back 12 odd years ago. I mean, I know they were in the same group as Iran, but I've always enjoyed watching Edin Dzeko. He was one of my favorites back then. And, the fact that he's still around and leading the front line is awesome. And, I agree with you, man, on the Bosnia atmosphere part of that venue that they played at, which they strategically decided to play in that
Yeah.
venue, Italy. And that was a brilliant decision.
Oh yeah.
Um, yeah, like, I mean, dude, that's I mean, it's completely different than the Estadio Azteca, obviously, but like, I think you and I talked about it the other day where it's like sometimes it's not about the capacity.
Oh no, yeah. It's
It's just about, sometimes like, if there's a lot of people, but in one of these like corporate soulless stadiums that like the noise doesn't really travel, like West Ham, for example,
oh,
is a great example.
yeah.
Whereas like, with Bosnia, I mean, I don't know the exact attendance figure off the top of my head, but it wasn't probably more than like maybe 9,000 at most. I mean, maybe even less than that. I don't remember the exact figure, but I mean,
It felt
that
like you were
was
playing on
yeah,
like in an alleyway in the middle of Sarajevo, like
yeah,
just
and
like
and then
on a
and then,
street corner or
you mentioned
something.
this yeah, and you mentioned the stadium part where, like, you know, built in a way where you've got people on their balconies being able to, like, you can, like, that would,
Oh,
um,
that
that could
was
that was a big reason why they beat Italy and made it to the World Cup was because they had that home field juice.
absolutely.
Um, but listen, man, I agree with you. I honestly I would not be shocked in the slightest if Bosnia come in second in the group. They're a tough side. You mentioned it. Kind of ironically, you mentioned it with Czechia earlier, where you looked at the playoff ties originally, and you're like, yeah, there's no way these guys are going to make it through those four teams. Like, but the difference being is that Czechia made it out, but what they did against Korea tonight was kind of what was expected. Maybe in the sense of like the difference being where Bosnia will sit back, like they did against Italy, but they'll take their chances. They're comfortable on the front foot.
They're
Uh,
comfortable playing with the ball. They really
yeah,
are.
with Czechia on the contrary was not.
That
I
that
mean,
they play
that
a
was
different sport sometimes, man.
no, dude. You said it best, man. It was like watching AFC North football out there, man. I mean, they were out there like, yeah. Listen, man.
Throwback
Mexico.
to Stoke
Yeah,
City.
yeah. Can you do it on a cold, rainy night in Stoke? Uh, yeah, man. I think Bosnia on the flip side. I do think that's a great opening match for Canada and Bosnia. Like, I think that's going to be a really interesting affair because, like you mentioned, I'll be interested to see how both teams set up. Going to Canada, I agree with you as well. it's a talented Canadian side. It's not like they're a host nation that's throwing out a bunch of, rejects and bums and they just happen to be hosting. Like,
Hmm.
these are talented players. Even I remember Kyle Aaron. I remember eons ago. I think when he was in the MLS, I think he was playing for Orlando or something like that. And you know
Yeah.
me, I don't watch a ton of MLS, but I remember I think it was the season opener many, many moons ago, and Kyle Aaron was playing in that match, and I remember watching that game. I'm like, "Hey, this Kyle Aaron guy's pretty solid." Um, and it's been cool to see his career trajectory from then until now. You mentioned Jonathan David had a lot of really good years for Leo, and even Tajon Buchanan's really solid. You mentioned Alfonso Davies, which is a tough blow. There's also I might butcher his name, Estacio. I like watching him too. He's a solid player. Um, it's a solid Canadian side. But I'll be interested to see the tactical contrast to that match because I think maybe, like you mentioned, I think Bosnia might go for it a little bit more than people might expect. And I honestly wouldn't be surprised if Bosnia get a result, maybe even. But what I am interested to see, and then this will go into the USA preview as well, is the atmosphere. What does that look like? You mentioned the Azteca, right? And I think this is where I like to make this like contrast because you mentioned the Azteca, like even if it wasn't as loud as it normally is, it was still incredibly loud.
Yes.
Um, but then do you get that same atmosphere in Toronto? Do you get that same atmosphere at SoFi tomorrow night with the United States? Um, or is it a bit, maybe, and it might still be packed, but how loud is it going to be? Is Bosnia gonna, because you gotta keep in mind, like you mentioned, look, Bosnia had to go, Wales is not an easy place to play either. And they made it through that to get to Italy. And I wonder how that atmosphere is gonna be. Will it be intimidating? And given the fact that it'll be 3 o'clock in the afternoon in Toronto on a Friday,
Hmm.
World Cup opener like that, what's that atmosphere gonna be like, with the ticket prices being what they are, and then obviously over here, I know that that's been a big topic of conversation in the United States, even for the United States opener. I mean, I don't know how it is, but I know even a couple days ago, I remember reading and seeing that there were still some open seats available for the United States opener match. Now, granted, I think the second and third match for the United States, I think, are pretty close, if not already sold out. But I think that's because maybe the ticket prices are slightly less expensive. Um, but yeah, I think you mentioned Switzerland too. I mean, yeah, they're a really tough side to play. They're one of those sides that they found a good magic between. Honestly, I never really thought about this before until just now, but they're kind of like the Atletico Madrid of international football a little bit, where it's like they've mastered the dark arts, but as the years have gone on, they've actually gotten better on the front foot as well. Um, I don't know if that's a great comparison or not, but it's just something that came to me right now. They're a tough side to play. I do agree with you. I think the Swiss will top the group. I've been very tempted throughout the pre-tournament process to slot Bosnia in at second. The only thing that really made me put Canada second is just I figured the atmosphere will help them out. But I also, with the caveat, I don't know how loud it's going to be. I really don't know. It could be an underwhelming atmosphere comparative to what could be expected, but I do expect it to be rocking in Toronto. I mean, Toronto's got a pretty passionate fan base in their professional sports. I mean, it goes without saying. The
Yeah.
Raptors, the Maple Leafs, the Blue Jays. Some of my favorite North American sports memories involve Toronto sports. I mean, it's no secret that I've got a soft spot for the Raptors. The Blue Jays, one of my favorite games in any sport in my entire life was that game 5 AODS with the Blue Jays and the Rangers back in the day when
Yeah.
Bautista when
The bat
Bautista hit
flip.
a bat flip. Uh,
Kenny
you
Albert on the call.
yeah, sometimes every now and then, maybe, to be honest with you, every now and then there are certain games I go in on YouTube and I like to rewatch, and that's one of them where like every now and then, maybe, at least once a year. I like to go in. It just kind of happens naturally. I'll go on YouTube. I'll throw that on. I'll throw the full game on, and I'll watch that like it's my first time watching it, and I just reliving it. And I remember exactly where I was when that bat flip happened and when that game was going on, and uh, so I do expect it to be rocking. But yeah, and then with Qatar, with the Qataris, you mentioned yeah, look, they at one point, yeah, look, the star was pretty bright. They came out here to the United States many years ago and they had a pretty decent showing. They've had some pretty good performances in Asia in the Asian Cup. They played Iran in one of those Asian Cup matches back in the day, and it was a really good match. And um a lot of those guys are still around, Akram Afif and Almoiz Ali. Those are like the two guys that I, up top that I always enjoyed watching for them. And I, so yeah, I think, with them, with the Qataris, I think they'll perform better than what they did when they hosted 4 years ago. But I do think that they'll probably finish at the bottom of the group still, but I think they'll put up a better fight than they did 4 years ago. Um, but I find it
Okay,
hard.
interesting.
Yeah, I think they'll put up a little bit of a better fight, not because they're a better team than they were 4 years ago necessarily, but I just think that I think there won't be as much pressure on them as when they were hosting, and I think they'll some of those players have been out here in the North America, and they've played. In Gold Cups and stuff like that. Look, I think they'll still finish fourth, but I don't expect them to get bludgeoned like 5-0 or anything like that either. I think they'll at least make it a respectable fight and they won't get bludgeoned. But before we do wrap this up, I do want to get your thoughts on the USA opener tomorrow night as well at 6 p.m. And then we can come in throughout, like we promised, we'll come in throughout the tournament night by night, and or day by day, if you will, and be able to preview and recap. So I know there's a lot of groups left, and I know you still have your things that you'll get to throughout the next couple of days, but just with that match specifically, and anything else you'd like to get into before we wrap it up, just kind of how you see that playing out.
Yeah, man. This Group D is, I think it's one of the more fascinating groups, and I'm not just saying that obviously because we're American, and the U.S. is one of our teams, but like, man, this group is. I mean, I felt this way right after the draw, and I still feel this way. I mean, the group is just incredibly balanced. And I mean, it's as beautifully balanced as you'll find a World Cup group to be. I mean, I can't think of any other World Cup groups, that have been like have looked like this on paper at least, where it's like you could really make a case for any team finishing top, and you can make a case for any order of these teams. I mean, I think as time has gone by, as we're now again we're I guess now it's today. The match will it's 6 p.m. Um, I do feel as though maybe I feel like a bit more separation between the teams, or I don't know. Maybe that's just my maybe it's just the excitement of the games, and I'm just I'm got putting on my U.S. hat, and I'm just maybe becoming a bit slightly delusional, but. I mean, having said that, it's just, we talked about Australia being a really solid squad, being a team that always punches above its weight, a team that I feel like is always overlooked, in World Cup, settings. Turkey are a very talented squad. They've got, two really young players, Kenan Yildiz and, uh, gosh, what's the other guy's name?
Arda
Arda
Guler.
Güler, yes. Yeah, and I think on paper, Turkey they've got some good talent, some good young talent. Paraguay, they might be the one team from South America at this World Cup that's kind of forgotten about. Uh, I guess, well, maybe if they weren't in the US group, they would be definitely forgotten about a bit more, but, um, because, I don't know. I think they're a bit of an I mean, out of all the South American teams, they're the team that's maybe the biggest unknown. They're also probably the team that's got the lowest ceiling. Um, but yeah, historically speaking, this is the first time they've qualified for a World Cup since 2010 when they went all the way to the quarters and they only lost in the quarters to the defending champions Spain, and I believe that game was a 1-0 win for Spain. A David Villa goal being the difference. Um, and so um, yeah, man, I also think that the Latin American teams, the South American teams playing in on the American continent, I wonder if that's going to be play into their advantage as much as I think it could, in terms of, well, their fans, the traveling fans, the traveling support, the climate, the weather. I mean, dude, South America. I mean, all every region. I mean, Asia can be tough with climate wise. Africa, of course, but in South America, I mean, I'll stand by this. One of the hardest places to play any sporting match, game, event is in La Paz in Bolivia. I think Bolivia haven't lost a competitive match in La Paz in forever. And I just say that because okay, these South American teams, they're tested with the climate, and the climate's going to be a big, the weather is going to be a big conversation this tournament, like we talked about last night. And that could be one of those factors that plays into, it might make up some of those, fine margins in a group that's so tight. You know, that traveling support and the familiar, the comfortability playing in this kind of climate. Um, and I guess, to be fair, and Paraguay's matches are, like we said, in at SoFi, and then their game against Turkey is in Santa Clara, and then yeah, okay, so two of their games are in Santa Clara, so maybe the climate won't be as big of a factor as I'm leading on, at least with regards to for them specifically. But yeah, I mean, still with the point about the traveling fans, I feel like, you know, I don't know, man. It's tough, but I do have um I mean, a bit of a conscience in terms of how I think the group is gonna, as much, and it's tough because, like I said, picking who's gonna finish where in this group is so tough because it feels, it's like no matter what you predict, it's just gonna you're gonna get the order wrong. It just feels like, but
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that too, by the way. I already know, like, I think it's gonna be one of those topsy-turvy groups, to be honest.
it's
I could see it.
I could see, like, yeah, yeah, topsy turvy, yeah, for sure. I could see every team winning one game, and the
Kinda
team that finishes.
cannibalizing each other a little bit, huh?
Oh yeah, definitely. A little bit like the SEC in its heyday, where you just, man, I mean, this is a gauntlet. Like, I could see, kind of like that circle. You know how they have like that meme, like the circle of suck, and like each team, I don't, different in different sports, like where like team A beats team B, and then team B beats team C, and then team C beats team D, and then team D beats team A. Like, I could see it be one of those, like, sort of situations, um, where,
Yeah.
like I said,
It
like
just comes down to who beat who the best and the worst, I guess.
yeah, and a goal differential, like whoever in the games that in the games that you do win, can you get can you make up, make a difference in the goal differential category? Because that might, it might be a difference between finishing first, second, or even being like one of the better, one of the eight best third place teams. Regardless, I do think the third place team in this group will be among the eight best third place teams. So I think three teams will advance out of this group. But yeah, I mean, the order's just been tough. I've been going back and forth on it for so long, and I think, I mean, now that the games are about to start, so I might as well just, I might as well just stick to my
Let
guns
her
or
rip.
let it
Yeah.
rip. Yeah, I'm gonna man, I'm gonna go with the U.S. finishing top, uh, and I feel like in some ways, if by saying that, I might be losing some credibility because I might be come across. I don't know, man. I mean, look, I think it comes down to the home field. If this was a tournament that was occurring any other place in the world, I would probably have the US finish 2nd or 3rd, probably 2nd, but the fact that it's at the home, I just it would be, I'm gonna go with the US finishing 1st. Like I said, the home field is just is that that's just the slight, thing to push it over the edge. Um, man, and then I'm gonna go Turkey 2nd, Paraguay 3rd, and Australia 4th. And I feel gross saying that. I really do. I mean, it's
Yeah, it's
it's
tough.
it's
It's
tough. It is so tough. But yeah, man. I as far as the game tomorrow, I'm obviously like, every game in the World Cup is crucial, but in this group especially, for the reasons we just said, every game is going to be massive and consequential. So U.S. and Paraguay, yeah, I think tomorrow it's going to be. eh, I guess we'll get some good hints tomorrow for sure as to how the group might go. I mean, Paraguay will be missing arguably their best attacking player, Julio Enciso, suffering a muscle injury right before the tournament. Big loss for them. He was, I mean, seeing him, I remember I saw him getting I saw him get injured. I saw a video of him getting injured, and the emotion on his face when he knew, it probably what meant he was going to miss the World Cup. Now, actually, there had been reports that he might end up being okay for maybe the last match day, for the third match in the group stage. But either way, he won't be available tomorrow, and I think that'll be a big loss for Paraguay. And as for the U.S., man, there's so many things we could go, so many places we can go with this team. Uh, whether it's on the pitch or off the pitch or the coverage, like of the team itself. But look, I think Pochettino's got his starting 11 set. I think you're gonna get Freeze in goal. My guy Anthony Robinson at left back. By the way, one of my favorite. I mean, he's one of my favorite players to watch. Definitely with the national team, the U.S. national team, but also in the Premier League, he's awesome. He's great. I mean, he's been so rock solid for Fulham for so many years. Mo Salah, as a quick tangent, Mo Salah I think is on record saying that Anthony Robinson has been his toughest test in his time playing in the Premier League. Anthony Robinson's a stud, man, and I'm not just saying that because he scored a screamer against Germany last Sunday. He's a baller. Um, Tim Ream looks like he's probably going to start. Pochettino seems to have a very soft spot for him, much like I know you do as well. So, so we'll see. We'll see.
That's El Capitan, man. That's the captain.
It's like yeah, Captain America right there, Captain, yeah, Grandpa.
Don't tell they yeah, don't tell Christian Pulisic he's not Captain America, man. He might
Oh man, gosh. My guy Chris Richards probably play beside him. Yeah, Alex Freeman from Villarreal playing at right back. Malik Tillman, who really had a great Gold Cup tournament last summer with the U.S. I think his stock is kind. I mean, he didn't have a great season with Leverkusen. Maybe kind of his stock is a bit down after that great tournament last year in the Gold Cup. But I still think you know, if he doesn't start, he'll definitely play a role in this game. Um, Tyler Adams alongside Anthony Robinson are probably my two favorite players in this team. Just as a side note, I mean, I love Tyler Adams is awesome, man. As a player, as a dude, like that's a guy I would love to, you know, I would love to play alongside. Um, just a great leader. All the plaudits and all the attention will go to Pulisic as usual, and Pulisic, nothing against Pulisic, of course. But Tyler Adams in many ways I feel like is kind of like a big, the heart and soul of this team. So big shout out to Adams. He's gonna start in midfield as usual, of course. It'll probably be Weston McKennie as well. Kind of a polarizing player to some degree, and we can probably talk about him a lot, for a whole hour. I think if I recall, you're very fond of him. I mean, I like the player as well. I do. Um, you know, and he's definitely generated a lot of strong opinions from the U.S. fan base. over the years. But I think when he's at his best, I mean, he's one of our best players. And him, I mean, him and McKennie and Adams are like the tandem in midfield that going back to 2022 or even before that cycle or during that qualifying cycle, McKennie and Adams were seen as like, this is the new era of U.S. players, being ushered in. Like this is the future, and now it's the present, and so this is a big tournament for those two guys, right in the prime of their careers and playing in a home World Cup. So I'm really hoping they step up to the to the plate and um, you know the striker position is, there's been conversation about Balogun and Ricardo Pepi over the recent days. There's an argument that Balogun's had a great year and he's probably seen as the starting number 9 for this team, but Pepi and his cameos in recent times, he's and maybe not so much in terms of scoring goals, but in terms of kind of enabling the wing play of Christian Pulisic. He's been a very accommodating player in that sense, kind of leaving opening space for Pulisic to kind of do his thing on the wing, kind of elevating the wing, his play, uh, even if he's maybe not the same sort of power, the same sort of, I guess, quality of finisher as Balogun in that sense. So it's going to probably be Balogun, but I think the fact that the U.S. have got a solid option behind him in Ricardo Pepi, at least in terms of form, I think that there was a time where recently where it's like the U.S. who are they going to be playing at number 9, and now it's like, okay, now you got a couple solid options. I'm not gonna come on here and sell you that Balogun and Pepe are gonna win the Golden Boot or anything, but I think I think the biggest question mark I have about this team, and it's a bit of a it's kind of a funny paradox in a way because it's completely contrary to to previous World Cups and just not just in my lifetime, but in this country's history. The biggest question I have is probably in goal. And like for every World Cup that the US have been in my lifetime, and like I said, and even before I was born, the you could say a lot of different things about the quality or lack thereof in the US team, but goalkeeper has always been a position where we've been, you know, uh, rock solid at bare minimum. I mean, no one will ever forget Tim Howard, and his, in his heroics in the 2014 World Cup, but he was, you know, one of the better goalkeepers in the Premier League for a while with Everton. Obviously, Casey Keller, Brad Guzan. I mean, these guys again, they're not going to get into any world class, FIFA Ballon d'Or, star 11s or whatever. But they're it's relative to, I guess, maybe the talent at other positions. Goalkeeper, we've always has never been really an area of concern for us. And I think for the first time, it's like kind of like that might actually be the area where I have the most question marks. It seems like Pochettino's sold on freeze. Matt Turner for a while seemed like he was going to be the guy for a couple World Cup cycles, and now he's in the back burner as a second option. So I mean, Zach Steffen, I don't know what the heck happened to him, but for a while it seemed like he was. I thought he was going to be the goalkeeper of the future. Going back to probably 5 6 years ago, and that obviously ended up being completely wrong because he is nowhere to be seen. But yeah, man, we'll see. Matt Freeze obviously won Pochettino over with his performances in the Gold Cup last year, and yeah, so we'll see how that goes. But I do think the U.S. It's going to be a tough game, but I think the U.S. will get the win here, and if they don't, the sky will be falling. I'm sure. uh, and Pochettino will be a fraud, and this and that. I do want to give one more shout out. I haven't named him yet because I don't think he'll be starting tomorrow. But Gio Reyna is a player who talk about polarizing. He's polarizing for different reasons from McKennie, Weston McKennie. I'm not going to give a whole 30 for 30 on the whole, his thing with his dad and all that. Just the sort of stuff that happened last World Cup with Berhalter, the coach, and Gio Reyna's dad, who's obviously a former U.S. player himself. But I want to mention Gio Reyna because he's someone that my brother is actually really has been a big fan of for quite some time, going back to the previous World Cup cycle. My brother felt my brother Big Nate, he fell in love with Gio Reyna in that World Cup cycle, and he kind of sold me on him too. Like after when and I mean Ryan, Nate, he's kind of a nonchalant kind of guy. I mean, he's passionate. Don't get me wrong, but he's a bit nonchalant at times in terms of giving opinions about certain players. But uh, he was very upfront about his admiration for Gio Reyna and how his performances in the qualifying campaign during the 2022 World Cup or prior to the 2022 World Cup. And I actually remember his performance against Mexico at the Azteca last qualifying campaign. He was one of the better players on the pitch. And I bring him up. My brother, uh, really high on him, and after kind of showing me the way with Gio Reyna, like I see it too. I mean, I saw it 4 years ago, and unfortunately, it hasn't panned out for him for various reasons. The club teams he's been on haven't been the greatest of fits for him. He just hasn't broken into any of those squads. Um, like you would have liked. And then also, again, we talk about all the time with all these different players, but injuries have been a huge roadblock for him. But man, you know, he's a really good player. If he's healthy, and if and it's a big if. I mean, he's one of those players where he needs a lot of things going his way, but if those variables go his way, he could. I would argue he's one of our most talented players. And actually, 4 years ago, I said, Christian Pulisic is probably the U.S.'s most talented player at the time. I said Tyler Adams is probably the U.S.'s best player, and I distinguished most talented and best player. Um, and you can make however you want to make up or interpret that. Feel free to, but that's just how I see it. And while I classified Pulisic as the most talented, and I classified Adams as the best overall player, I felt that Gio Reyna was the player that had the highest ceiling. And so, again, now 4 years later, do I still feel that way? I mean, we'll see. I mean, right now, he's got to get the playing time. I don't think he's gonna start, but if it was up to my brother, and I mean, my brother was hell bent on making sure that I gave his boy Gio Reyna a shout out. So, um, yeah, man, I would love to see what Gio can do, in whatever capacity he plays in this World Cup. But I think beyond Gio, I think the midfield, the forward players, the wingers. Yeah, I think Pochettino's got a clear idea, and it's gonna be those players I named earlier. Adams, Pulisic, McKennie, Balogun. I mean, there's never any doubt that that quartet was probably gonna be play a big fixture. Malik Tillman, Sebastian Berhalter is another guy who I'm sure is Sebastian Berhalter. Maybe one day, maybe after tomorrow's match, we'll have a conversation about him. But he's someone who I know, probably even from you, I'm sure, it generates very. I don't know. I don't want to say his passionate opinion, strong opinions, but he's a polarizing player too. I feel like there's several of those players in this team that are. It just feels like it feels like either it feels like either the media props them up to be something that they aren't, and kind of, I mean, for the some of the fluff pieces I've seen on Sebastian Berhalter have been, it almost seems a little bit, it's like they're not even trying to hide it, man. It's like Greg Berhalter is colluding with his friends at Fox or something, and but I will say at the same time, Sebastian Berhalter, I've seen him play in person a couple times in the past month and a half, because I've gone to a couple MLS games, Vancouver playing at the LA Galaxy, and at San Diego FC. And I've gone to both those games for the sole purpose of wanting to see my one of my heroes, childhood heroes, Thomas Muller. But obviously, he plays for Vancouver. But so does Sebastian Berhalter also happens to play for Vancouver. So I got to see some of him in person in the flesh. And look, he's not he he's not someone that's gonna that's got he's not a complete player by any means. He's very limited in what he can do. Um, and for that reason, I probably he shouldn't be starting, but he does, I think, have a distinct role in this team in terms of he's really good at set pieces. I mean, he's got a great ball delivery. I mean, from corner kicks and free kicks. He's a dead ball specialist at the end of the day, and if you need someone to come in late in the match to kind of control the game a little bit, add a little composure to the midfield, I think he might be a pretty decent option for that. So um, I know he's and I just felt like I need to give a piece on him because when people talk about him this summer, it's either going to be he's like the next, Zinedine Zidane, or
Yeah.
they're going to say that he's, complete dog water and he's only there because of nepotism. And I'm here to say, as usual, it's probably somewhere in the middle, you know. um, but that's just my opinion, and we'll see. You know what? If he comes, who knows? Who knows? We'll see. And if I'm wrong, like I said, I'll gladly own it. But at the end of the day, I don't know how much of bearing it will really have at the end of the day because, like I said, he's probably not going to be amongst the starters anyway. So, yeah, we'll see. I mean, all the talk will be about Pulisic. Um, he's had a rough second half of the season with Milan. Hadn't scored a goal, I think, in like forever in the calendar year of 2026 with his club. Maybe he ended up doing so. I don't know, but uh,
Took 'em
what's that?
it took 'em a while.
Yeah, it took him a while for sure, and so yeah, so we'll see. He'll get like I said, a lot of the attention, and so just get ready for that, Ryan. I know you're eager
Oh,
to.
yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, it already started, but you know what? I think you said it best. Like, he'll get the media attention of it, but the match will be won. Much like with basketball, where it always drives me nuts, where it's like the coverage focuses on one player, like the Spurs won Game 3, and the fluff piece is like how Wemby got the Spurs back. It's like, well, what happened to Dylan Harper, Stephon Castle, and all these other guys? Like, it's not one. It's not. They're not playing 1-on-5, and just like tomorrow night, it's not going to be Pulisic running around 1-on-11 or anything. Uh, you know, they got a lot of. He might get the headlines, but it'll be guys like Tyler Adams, Anthony Robinson, Weston McKennie. Pochettino seems to be pretty intent on playing Serginho Dest in that sort of role as well.
Yeah, an
Uh,
advanced role, right? I mean, that was
Advanced
pretty
role, yeah.
fascinating to see him play almost like as a right winger.
Yeah, and that's probably where he'll slot in that starting 11. It'll be, you mentioned it'll be Freeman, Robinson, Chris Richards, which Chris Richards is really good too, by the way. It's a good thing that he's fit. He's a
Yes,
really good
sir.
player.
We love our
Tim,
Crystal Palace talents, Ryan.
oh, you can never spread enough Crystal Palace
Oh,
propaganda
and
out to it.
it's aged pretty well, right? That Michael Lisa guy. We can't
Yeah, we'll
talk
get
about
to
him
Michael
enough.
Olise, man. The summer of Michael Olise.
Oh,
Uh,
I made that declaration already,
Yeah,
man.
that's what you said. I don't wanna take credit for that. You said that yourself. Uh, I wanna make sure that people know that that was your proclamation over text a couple days ago. And
I mean,
then,
dude, that hat trick.
you
Sorry,
wanted to gi you wanted to give Big Nate a shout out. I'll give
yeah.
you a shout out that you said many days before the tournament that it was gonna be the summer of Michael Olise. Um, but yeah, man, I'm really excited for tomorrow's matches and a full 4 game slate Saturday and Sunday, which you and I we're gonna be locked in, and we're gonna be, coming in here. We're gonna try to go 39 for 39. We're 1 for 39 so far. Knock on wood, we'll be 2 for 39 and 3 for 39 onwards. Um, we recapped match day one. We previewed match day two. We talked a little bit about groups A, B, and D. And then we'll come in here in the next 24 hours or so, give or take. and we'll talk about Group C and onwards as well, with a look towards the weekend, continuing to go kind of group by group, day by day. Uh, but hey, man, I appreciate you taking the time for a little after dark. Uh, set the tone for the World Cup. We made a promise and we're sticking to it. And I appreciate you for taking the time and making that a reality. Um, so before we wrap this up, any concluding thoughts?
No, I think just just enjoy the month 5 week long festival of football as best as you can. Get your get your sleep, get your rest because it's gonna be a long it's gonna be coming guns blazing, man. Games are gonna be
Yeah,
coming fast and quick. So get your eat well, sleep well, support your nations, uh and yeah, Viva Mexico. Let's go.
there you go. Alrighty. Well, this was the match day one recap, day one of the World Cup, with a look ahead to day two and beyond. And we'll see you for day two, my brother. I appreciate you. I love you. This has been
Love
the
you too,
Unfiltered.
man.
My guy D will be back.
Take care.
Take care. Have a good one, people. Enjoy the World Cup.